revolutionary councils, known as Soviets, called for the Imperial Family's arrest. Nicholas II, henceforth Nikolai Alexandrovich Romanov, and his family were detained at their summer palace in Tsarskoye Selo.
He thought that following his abdication, he'd be able to live in Crimea like any ordinary citizen. That was his first proposal. Later, in agreement with the provisional government, it was planned he and his family would leave Russia. Discussions were held with Great Britain, but unfortunately it finally decided against helping Nicholas II.
In fact, it was Nicholas's own first cousin, King George V of England, who rejected the Russian government's official request.
Inside England, of course, tempers were running against the Tsar and his German spy wife. All nonsense, of course. She was not a German spy. She was more English than anything else. But that was the situation in England.
He feared his support for a deposed emperor would weaken the British monarchy. All the more so because strikes and social movements were gaining ground in England thanks to the impact of the Russian Revolution on left-wing political circles.
George V in 1917 is very worried about the threat to conservatism in general, but to the dynasty in particular, from the socialist movement, from the working class. He doesn't want his dynasty to be associated with the hated Romanovs, let alone the hated and fallen Romanovs.
Other European countries, including France, also refused for various reasons to offer asylum to the Romanovs, who found themselves at the mercy of an ever more radical revolution. Nicholas's abdication only calmed the situation momentarily. Demonstrations soon spread. Calls for democracy were replaced by Bolshevik slogans. The troops refused to continue a war begun by a man they now referred to as the tyrant. The Soviets called for Nicholas II's execution. The Minister of Justice, Alexandra Kerensky, refused their demands. He replied bombastically that he did not wish to be the Marat of the Russian Revolution. A radical socialist, he became Prime Minister and Minister of War in July. He felt sympathetic towards the Imperial Family and decided it was no longer safe for them to remain so close to Petrograd. The Soviets had blockaded the railway, and so he chose to exile the family to Tobolsk, a peaceful Siberian town far away from the revolutionary madness. The family left Tsarskoye Selo during the night of August 1st, 1917, and after 6 days' journey arrived in Tobolsk by boat. They moved into the town governor's house. Once a day, the Romanovs were allowed to take a stroll in the courtyard that was surrounded by a high fence. Their domestic staff was reduced to the minimum. They had no more money. The inhabitants of Tobolsk, who still thought of Nicholas II as Tsar, provided the family with milk, eggs, and fruit. The Romanovs spent their time reading and writing.
In Tobolsk, Nicholas eventually heard of the disintegration of his Russia. The tutor Gilliard, still part of the household, saw the intensity of the effect it had on him.
I then for the first time heard the Tsar regret his abdication. It now gave him pain to see that his renunciation had been in vain. I frequently heard Nicholas muttering, "Disgrace, suicide for Russia, and to think that they called Her Majesty a traitor."
The family had now spent more than 6 months as prisoners in Tobolsk, in the shadow of its ancient Kremlin and cathedral. New, harsher guards had taken over, and Alexandra and her daughters secretly sewed into their bodices all that was left of the Romanov riches, their jewelry.
I make everything now. I am knitting stockings for Alexei. His father's trousers are torn and darned, the girl's underlinen all in rags. I am sad, because they are allowed no walks except in front of the house, inside the high fence. But at least they have fresh air, and we are grateful for anything.
I would say that the Romanovs' fate was sealed from the moment that the Bolsheviks came to power.
Although Vladimir Ilyich Lenin doubted the abdication and the February Revolution would have any lasting effects, he left his place of exile. His journey from Switzerland was arranged by the Germans, who were counting on Lenin and Bolshevik propaganda to put a stop to the war.
Lenin got to St. Petersburg in April, with the Germans' help. They knew exactly what they were doing. They helped spread the revolution in Russia.
The Bolsheviks seized power in Petrograd on October 25, 1917. The provisional government was powerless to prevent the coup d'etat, even though it did not have the full support of the people. Conservatives and socialists tried to organize the opposition in order to regain control. The Bolsheviks formed the Red Army, mobilizing it a few months later. In order to supply much-needed food to the major cities, the new regime's secret police, or Cheka, forcibly confiscated the peasants' hidden wheat supplies. A few months earlier, Lenin and the Bolshevik Party had seized power in the name of these peasants, who soon became the victims of the new regime. From 1918 onwards, the Bolsheviks chose terror as their preferred method of government. They hounded any individual considered likely to turn against them. And so began a wave of mass arrests and summary executions. The prisons filled up. The first gulags were built. Whole trainloads of people were sent north. Nicholas II's situation became increasingly precarious. The Commissar of War, Leon Trotsky, who was a far more popular figure than Lenin, called for the bloody tyrant's trial in 1918. Inspired by the French Revolution of 1789, he intended to stage a spectacular trial with himself as public prosecutor, which would put an end to any remaining support for the monarchy in Russia. He knew such a trial would have significant repercussions, particularly since the Bolsheviks had begun a nationwide campaign to destroy the symbols of the former regime.
On top of everything, Alexei, now nearly 14 years old, was to suffer another serious bout of hemophilia. He would never walk again.
He is frightfully thin and yellow. I sit with him all day. Yesterday, he said to me, "Mama, I would like to die. I am not afraid of death, but I am so afraid of what they will do to us here."
Trotsky sent a regiment of Chekists to Tobolsk, led by the revolutionary Vasily Yakovlev, who carried a warrant signed by Lenin. Their mission was to bring Nicholas back to Moscow.
The Romanovs were told to get ready to leave, but not where they were going. Across the road from the governor's house lived the Tsar's much-reduced retinue, including Dr. Botkin, the family physician, and his daughter Tanya. Shortly before Easter, a small gift arrived for Tanya, and with it, a note.
It is dated 1918 and signed O.R. Olga Romanov, Easter 1918. Just a few days before their departure for Ekaterinburg, 3 months before their death.
Christ has risen. My dear Tanya, here are 2 eggs from all of us. It's very sad we can't all be together. With fondest kisses, Olga Romanov.
Under guard, Nicholas and his family were sent on yet another exhausting journey.
But the Soviet of Yekaterinburg, capital of the Urals, wanted Nicholas to be tried in Siberia. It hijacked Yakovlev's train. On hearing the train's destination had been changed, Nicholas declared, "I'll go anywhere except the Urals." He felt fear for the first time. The Romanovs arrived in Yekaterinburg on April 30th, 1918. The conditions of their imprisonment confirmed their worst fears. Held in the home of a local merchant called Ipatiev, they suffered at the hands of their guards, who allowed them no privacy, covered the walls with obscenities, repeatedly searched the rooms, and stole everything they could. Nicholas drew the layout of the apartment in his diary. They had never lived in such close quarters before. The 4 Grand Duchesses shared one room, and Nicholas and Alexandra shared theirs with Alexei. At the beginning of July, the Ural Soviet appointed a new chief of detachment, Yakov Yurovsky. A Bolshevik and member of the Cheka, he was responsible for guarding Ipatiev's house. As the noose tightened around the Imperial Family, the Bolshevik situation also worsened. Thanks to foreign aid, the counter-revolutionaries, or Whites, had successfully organized themselves and were now fighting on the northern, southern, and eastern fronts. At Omsk, where many members of the Russian aristocracy had taken refuge, an anti-Bolshevik coalition formed the Provisional Government of Siberia. Yekaterinburg, which was held by the Reds, found itself in danger.
It was obvious that the Whites were heading towards Yekaterinburg. No one knew how much time was left. 2 weeks, maybe a month. Yekaterinburg was bound to fall, and the question was what should be done with the Tsar. We had no written documents about the discussions, but it's thought Nicholas II's fate was decided at this point, and that Moscow had no objections to his being executed.
The decision to execute the Tsar was taken with Lenin and Sverdlov's full agreement. Goloshokin, the regional military commissar, went to Moscow a few days before the execution. He stayed at Sverdlov's, where he would have met Lenin. The two almost certainly broached the subject when discussing capital punishment as one of the powers of the people's courts.
Back at the Ipatiev House, Alexandra continued to write in a diary which had been given to her by her daughter Tatiana.
To my sweet darling Mama dear, with my best wishes for a happy new year, may God's blessings be with you and guard you forever. Your own loving girl, Tatiana.
The 46-year-old Alexandra dated her diary through to the end of the summer, but the last entry is on July the 16th.
Grey morning after lovely sunshine. Tatiana started to read from the prophet Obadiah. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Played bezique with Nicholas. 10:30 to bed. 15 degrees.
As the Whites approached the outskirts of Yekaterinburg, the Ural Soviet took the decision to execute the Imperial Family. It sent a telegram to Moscow addressed to Lenin and Yakov Sverdlov, the new regime's number 2. This telegram stated that owing to the military situation, the trial could not take place and that the Soviet had decided to execute Nicholas II. It also requested Moscow to inform the Soviet immediately if it disagreed with this decision. As time was short, the telegram was not sent in code. The Kremlin received it but sent no reply. The Soviet waited until midnight, and then, at around 1 a.m., the order was given to wake the family and servants.